We're live.
All right. That's exciting.
Isn't it?
Well, with the star with the star attraction.
That's
yeah,
right.
Good morning.
Yeah, bright and sparkling.
Everybody else.
That's right. So our star riffer is not in the studio yet. See, I'm not supposed to say that, right? If I was a really good producer, and I would be like, doing like singing and dancing up front and keeping the crowd entertained.
We're all about authenticity here. And
that's right. At Six Star, we are very authentic. This is me, early morning, no makeup. This is how we look. This is how we look at 8 o'clock in the morning. At least I've got Steve here waiting for his compatriot.
Co-conspirator.
Yep, co-conspirator.
Isn't this funny? This is the second time we've done this, and both times the universe has conspired against us with technology.
How is the technology conspired against us today?
I'm calling Marti technology.
Well, our fellow friend Rob, who introduced us last week, Rob is asleep right now, so he's in the UK and he couldn't wait up for this. He's actually on a little holiday with his family, so good on him. But we are. It's us.
We're padding. We're padding.
We're padding now. So let me just do a little introduction for those who are watching and haven't joined us last week. Didn't get the chance to join us last week because we did have tech issues last week. So these conversations are authentic, real, very different kind of conversations. And it's effectively a riffing between Marti and Steve. Marti teaches, consciousness and business. And for those people who don't understand it, I guess you'll understand it as the conversation unfolds. What Marti teaches and presents to the world is a different way to approach life and business, and that we bring awareness to everything that we do. And the more we have awareness and presence in our actions in the moment, the more rich our lives will be, the more valuable, and so many benefits. Yet it breaks free of the old structures. When I say old, the existing structures of how Western and modern business people operate. So it's a different way of being in business, and it's quite revelatory and inspirational. And for me, listening to you guys speak last time, it was just exciting and also freeing. So in these conversations, there's a topic. You guys are going to talk about it. Steve, you come at it from the novice, the person that's trying to learn, and Marti comes at it from the person who is the expert, I suppose, and providing the knowledge and the wisdom. So that's how these are structured. I'm still padding here, waiting for our other presenter to get online.
For the star.
The star of the show, who's not here yet. Let's hope. She sent me a message saying she's getting online, and
right. So that she's the Taylor Swift of collective awareness, and she's doing the diva thing.
Exactly.
The band, the Blues Brothers band is just warming up the crowd. They're playing the trombones and everything. So how about I because I am the teacher and Marti is the Yoda of this. And the subject that we were talking about is how we navigate stress issues and issues, and when things go wrong, how can we remain present during such times? So that's I think in today's parlay, that's a lot of people are doing that, right? It's meditation and being present. The past is the past. The Kuna Matata type conversation and everything. And I was thinking, we're just sitting in the same pond. if we try to solve those problems. So, first of all, we're saying it's a problem. Well, why is it a problem? Why do we look at things that don't go well for us in the moment, and we categorize it as bad, right? Why? What
Why is it bad? Because we compare it, don't we?
Yeah, and the Chinese proverb, or it's a Japanese proverb, I'm not sure, where the farmer's sitting there and he's got a horse and the horse runs away, and the rest of the farmers come in, oh, isn't it terrible that your horse has run away? And then the horse comes back with another horse, and they go, oh, isn't it wonderful that that your horse has come back? And he goes, well, I don't know. And then his son starts riding the horse, and they say, oh, isn't it wonderful that your son's learning how to ride a horse? And he goes, I don't know. Then he falls off the horse and breaks his leg, and they say, oh, isn't it terrible that your son's broken leg? He goes, I don't know. And then the army comes along and tries to recruit kids because they're going to war, and they can't recruit the son because he's got a broken leg. It's like, you just don't know right now, the shit that's happening in your life. Is it good or is it bad? You just don't know. And so it's that attitude of how do you work that? And if Marti was here, she'd have that wise sage moment. So Av, I'm flicking to you.
Well, yeah, I am chatting to Marti on a chat platform. I'm not sure what. I think she's having tech issues. Join it. Oh, I can see her coming in right now. Actually,
right, there we go. So I'm going to have to repeat that.
Exactly.
And apologies to those if you're still with us. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of people who have just gone, this is dribble, I'm out of here.
No, I think it's great. I heard a little bit of that. So sorry for being late. I guess I know technologies of consciousness, but not LinkedIn technologies. Better late than never.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So welcome, Marti. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. The sun's out. It's getting warm here. So I'm great.
So what did you, of my riff, what did you hear?
You were starting to talk. You were starting to talk about how people view their experiences, I think. And when things don't go the way they want, we all go to the negative. And at that point, I hopped off to get on the right link. So that I got the gist of that.
Yeah, well, no, that was pretty much, what you said in less than 10 seconds. I managed to stretch that out for about 5 minutes to get you in the room.
Oh, bless your heart. Yeah, well, actually, it's a beautiful thing to start with, because I was thinking about our conversation last time, and we had ended up with this extremely simple statement about consciousness. And everybody thinks it's so, it's really complex, or else they've just decided they're conscious and they don't want to know anymore. And the first thing that we said was, well, try firing up your sensing system, your kinesthetic system, your sound system, your ability to catch the scent of things and see the textures of the world. It was so simple, right? And now I was thinking that's a really surprising start for most people. You get into it by doing something radically simple. But what you've brought up is the first speed bump, I think, that people run into. What do you call a speed bump in Australia? There's a different word on every continent.
No, speed bump.
Yeah, or a brick wall. And that is that in Western culture, we tend to focus on the negative. We've taught ourselves to look at what's wrong, at what is not yet existing, what we do not yet have, all those things. And that means that we're putting our awareness to things that are not working. So we're learning about everything that doesn't work. We're learning about everything that doesn't make us feel good. But consciousness is always on the move, creating states of fulfillment. That's what it does all the time. It finds some energy, it condenses it into a seed, it germinates the seed, it blossoms it into states of fulfillment with enough energy and information to do it again at a higher level and again and again and again. It's kind of infinite. And so we really, to be fully conscious in the world that we have, which is kind of our only choice, we have to know how things work. If we're only looking at things that are not working, we're really, really in a rut, really up against the speed bump. So I thought that was a wonderful thing for you to start with. And it's very challenging for people. I think it's challenging emotionally. And if we're talking about consciousness and we're talking about emotions, those are two very different regions of consciousness. So you've opened up a very big, very important region for us to be exploring. That's just an opening statement. Is that triggering?
Yeah. Well, it's something that, I was very fortunate to be coached. Was in a business context, but it was nearly 30 years ago now, probably less than that, probably 25. And it was one of the very first business coaches that worked in the emotional intelligence world, right? And it was very, very leading edge. And a lot of it was about letting go of the outcome, so to not focusing on an outcome. So if it's the example I gave, I'm not sure whether you heard about the Chinese proverb of the old farmer who's something happens and it's good, and then everybody says, well, that's great, and he goes, I don't know. And then something bad happens and everybody says, isn't that great? And he goes, I don't know, because you just don't know. You don't know what that leads to. But letting go of the outcome, I think that's one. There's two things that triggered for me. One was letting go of that outcome, but then it always comes back to the ego. You're feeding the ego. The ego wants something. And so, I sometimes call it the idiot on my shoulder, that's talking to me, telling, advising me this thing, you should do that, right? Or that's not good for you or something like that. And I'm going, are you trying to help or hurt, right? I don't understand. And you and me, right?
Yeah.
So it is challenging, and particularly in a business context, because, things happen on a daily basis in business. And you have to react to those, and if your perception is it's continually bad that's happening, and a client leaving, you would perceive to be a bad thing, right? A client not accepting a proposal, you would say, a staff member leaving, you would say it's a bad thing. But is it?
Right.
Is it? What's the opportunity? I think in opportunity, so what space did that then create? That client that left, well, that creates opportunity. It's now capacity that I can do things that maybe, I wanted to do or need to do. So, that's where I'm coming from. But again, it's not,
it's huge what you said. If I'm going to see, let's take the client leaving. If I'm going to understand that a client's proposal leaves me with space for something else, my awareness cannot be focused on my own ego. My awareness has to be working out in the world. For me to understand client leaving as a potential opportunity, I have to have, I call it a radar screen. I have to have a radar screen that is very big and based in the world, not on my ego. But if my awareness is constantly referring back to me, if I'm self-referential, that's the way to say it, and that client leaving has only to do with me, and my brain will process it as a negative. And then my ego claims it as the negative. And then there I am in that situation. And so we're back to our very, very first comment, our first session, when I said, hey, let's get our awareness out in the world. Let's get our awareness off of ourselves and see what happens to us. Yeah. Because the way we process information is not up to the ego. Yep. It depends on where our awareness is working. So that's a huge distinction that you've made.
Marti, I'm having an audio problem. I don't know whether it's your signal, but you're coming through with a. Av, are you seeing that too? I don't know whether there's anything we can do with that technically.
I'm going to try something here. I'm nothing but trouble today, huh?
Well, what's the opportunity there? Yeah, well, here's a real, but Marti, here's a real live example, right? So, this is not from the listener's point of view, right? If they're listening to this, it is not fun, right? Because I'm struggling to, you're coming through. It's you're getting frozen and the audio and everything. But I'm so fascinated in the subject, but therefore I'm being attentive, right? I'm trying to engage with this rather than disengaging with the subject matter, right? Because the circumstance is not working in my favor. So, I don't know, maybe this is testing our audience to, for the ones who are left are the ones who are interested, right? Because they actually engage with it. Anyway, that's just my way of padding whilst we're trying to figure out whether you got your technology right or not.
I'm going to I wanted to just pop in because that was really interesting. And Marti said a couple of things there that I just kind of went, oh, I wonder how the audience took that. And the first one was about we don't solve problems with our ego. And the other part was the first step to being more in a space of consciousness is to take our awareness off of ourselves. And I know for me, I'm always, everything's telling me to think about myself. How do I feel? What do I think? I'm always invited to, think about me. We live in a very self-focused world, don't we? Me. Look at my body. Look at the way I feel. Look at this. What are my desires? What are my, all of that, the my, me. And yet what I continually, from last session and this conversation, Marti, what I'm hearing is about take the focus off of yourself into outside of you. And that's where we get our information. Yeah. And the less we focus on us, the better.
Yeah, actually. But here's another speed bump is that most people in the Western world will have trouble following that little instruction because the self hasn't had enough attention. Most people don't have the confidence in themselves. They haven't found what they call in indigenous traditions the essential self. And so to take my awareness off of myself, if I haven't found myself, the ego is going to start complaining. And all the emotions will get kicked up and the circuit gets kicked up. So, so I hope you heard all of it. I think
I'm not sure if it's a my end. Av, can you hear Marti okay? Can
no,
you jump back in?
That was all really muffled and chopped.
Yeah.
We didn't hear of it.
I can try one other thing here if you guys will give me a second.
Sure. Yep. I've just as an aside, again, using the practice, in one of the 6-star meetings have asked me how I was going in a post our last week's conversation, and just, you know, trying to solve problems, really that going outside and just being able to feel the wind and, you know, observe the colors and the noises and the smells and everything, and then come back inside, and it's like going for a swim.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like you just get this wash of, it's all, I can't explain it, right? Which is, I think, a beautiful thing. It just feels like, you know, I've not cleansed, but there's been this freshness. This, like, it's almost like I've been rebooted.
Yes.
You know, and then come inside, and then, you know, start going on. But what the reason I mentioned that is that I was talking with someone yesterday, and we're looking at, you know, how can we redo my website, for example. And I was talking to him about some of the leadership work that I did in Papua New Guinea, where we talked about the corporate village and the village, right? And the challenges that they have integrating their traditional beliefs into a Western world. And it's a really difficult thing. So it's the bit, you know, we were talking, well, it's the business village, because corporate village sort of feels corporate-y, right? It feels like it's thing, but the business village, you know, that concept of, it takes a village to raise a child, you know, so it takes a business village to support its environment around that. That sort of, for me, it's almost like there's a couple of stars starting to align in my world, right? So the collective awareness, these thinkings, the ability to go out and, you know, be freshened. So thinking about what were you talking about, the ego, and, you know, the point that Av made, which was brilliant, you know, so what is it that we talk, you know, we keep getting told, you know, feel, right? This is the emotional intelligence thing now, right? You need to feel. You know, vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength, and all that, right? What are your views on that?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, in the Western world, we mix up full consciousness with emotions. And emotions are a small part of full consciousness. You could say emotions are our response to a situation. They are not the situation. And if I've got my awareness working at the ego level of consciousness, I'm not going to be able to tell the difference between my emotional reaction and what I'm reacting to. And I'm going to get all tangled up in it. And if I get tangled up in it and I take things personally, I cannot participate in collective action. I will not be able to. Because at that level of consciousness, I'm processing information in a part of the brain that only has an either or wiring. And everybody's trying to change their emotions and think differently. And this all has to do with where our awareness is working. So if we come to, I love that business village, because a village is a business. You know, the first, I think we mentioned this in one of our talks already, that one of the first initiatory paths in indigenous cultures was that of the merchant priests in Egypt. And your road to enlightenment was to be sure wealth was distributed in your town, to be sure everybody had enough. And all of that is supported by the organizing principles of consciousness that have to do with presence and exchange and connection and so on. So a business really oughtn't to be different than a community, than a family, than a friendship. It's all the same if we're operating in full consciousness. But it's sort of strange. I actually have a lot of my groups this year working on the principle of essential self, finding out who we really are and having the experience of our own identity. the only way we can actually find who we are beyond the ego is to wake up in our connections into the world. The world is connecting to us all the time, and we're trying as Western people to put our awareness into those connections, so we learn from the world, we learn from our environment, instead of constantly referencing the ego, which doesn't have any information for us. The ego, biologically, neurologically, is just supposed to be the home of our beautiful, bondable, memorable personality. That's what it's for. It's not there to make decisions. It has defenses, but that's a whole other matter and another region of consciousness. What we're talking about is, can we wake up as modern people in our fullness and remember, because it's really wired into us, can we remember what it is to be connected? And if we can get to that level of experience, we're going to start to realize a lot of things. We won't have to be taught everything. The wisdom is kind of in our bodies, and we'll wake up to it. But I think first and foremost, if you walk into a business and you try to tell them, well, you're really a village and it works this way and you should be collective, if you don't get people's awareness off their ego structures, you will not be able to accomplish anything, at least not long term. It's awareness training, and I don't mean the contemplative version. I mean a very active, ignited experience of the world around you. Yeah. And you had an experience like that recently. You shared that with me, of putting your awareness on the world around you, feeling the environment, and you solved a problem like that.
Yeah. It's I don't know whether I solved the problem, but at least I took a step forward, whereas I was stuck. Right, I'm in that. It's an iterative, and this is the thing about this is the thing about business. It's iterative. It's not a journey. It's not a destination.
Right.
It's like, I've made it. What? You've made what? What did you get to? Right. So, absolutely. I had that experience and continue to have that experience.
Yeah. Well, it's important. We're talking about a tiny detail that is at the center of all the things we really want to discuss. And that tiny detail is, where is our awareness? If my awareness is on myself at the level of the ego in my consciousness, I am going to feel responsible for everything. And I'm not. So that means I'm going to end up miserable. And coming back to your first question, I'm going to start really processing my experience as negative. I didn't do this. I didn't understand that. I didn't get that. I didn't figure this out, because my awareness is working at the wrong level, a too limited a level of consciousness, and I'm mistaking that for the totality.
Yep, Marti, the thing that and it is a negative thought, and it's trying to, how do I solve this particular problem? Because what I see, have 6-star business. What we're trying to do is get people to think differently about how they live their life, right, in a more authentic, genuine, pleasurable, enjoyable way, and and sustain themselves, feed their ego so that they feel good, but do it in a collective awareness way. And that's a dichotomy, right? So it's like, how do I do that? So we've lived for 100 plus years in the Industrial Revolution. We've lived probably 30 years in the information revolution. The schooling system is such that it is based on and this is my cynical view of the education system, having been through it and having put kids through it, right? It's a battery farm to teach people how to become hens in the business or the commercial world. You know, it doesn't assist people who have got who are geniuses in their own right, but they don't conform, so therefore they're ostracized. You know, there's research now where ADHD is seen as somewhat of you know, people who have that are in the wrong classroom. You know, put them in the right classroom where they can be, you know, creative and, you know, and express their emotion, or emotions is probably not the right word, but, you know, be who they are, right? Not in a box. And so they're continually staring at the window, and that's bad behavior, because they're not focusing on the book that's in front of them that tells them how to learn something so they can go to university and pay, you know, yada yada. I'm on a soapbox here, right? But so it's endemic in the it's endemic in the system. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to get people to consider an alternative which requires some sense of trust and bravery, because if it's wrong, the consequences are significant, right? If it's wrong. Now, I don't believe it's wrong, but I'm a disciple of the gospel, right? So you know, and this is what we're trying to do here, isn't it? You know, we're trying to get people. You know, this is Moses on Moses on the Mount, right? Where, you know, with the burning bush.
Take off our shoes.
So what I know you've been doing this for many years, right? And so what would be for the person who's listening to this and they're going, yeah, I don't get it, right? What are you talking about? What's the future? What's the future life for someone who has? What's your life, right? You're now in this. You know, you're somewhere along the journey in this collective awareness. What does it mean to you to be like this?
Okay, I'm going to speak to that, and then there's a whole bunch of things you said that really got me excited. So I'll circle back to them.
We might have to come back to that, but anyway, in part three,
just a couple of points. So you know, everybody, in most people in the Western world think that, oh, if I get conscious, I'll be happy all the time. Yeah. Oh, it's all going to be good. Yeah, I'm going to make lots of money. All that stuff. Everything lovely. Well, the thing about consciousness is it's a package deal. And when you unfurl your consciousness, you not only feel the good moments more deeply and profoundly, but you also feel the troublesome moments more deeply and profoundly. And in both of those, I think of life as a wavelength. And so we're talking about the peaks and the troughs. And so the peaks are more glorious and the troughs are deeper and more intense, but they're connected. You're not just going for top or bottom, they're connected. So the more you unfurl your consciousness, the more you actually live in the middle ground, where everything's just actually okay and nothing's terribly exciting or terribly awful. It's just life, and it's great and it's easy, right? No big highs or lows. But occasionally you have a beautiful peak and it really goes into your heart and your soul, and it's amazing. And occasionally you'll have a trough and you have the strength and the capacity and the heart and the vision to go into your deepest, darkest challenges and learn some stuff and get stronger and come back stronger and wiser and more empowered. Instead of freaking out and, I don't know, taking antidepressants or whatever. I'm not trying to diss people who need the medications, but
Sure.
Our ability to actually experience ourselves is the biggest gift. To actually know who we are and stop doubting that is the biggest gift. And when we find that, we can manifest, we can rest, we can love, we can discern, it doesn't make it easy. It makes it more profound and meaningful.
I just got this warm glow over me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The feeling that, you know, I can be, I mean, the image of the wave, or the you know, the ocean, where you're at the top of the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and so you can see for miles, you can see the horizon, and how exciting is that?
Yeah.
And if you can stay on that wave, you know, obviously that exhilaration there.
Mm-hmm.
But then knowing that at the bottom of that wave, you feel safe.
Yeah.
And it's a lesson in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can, from that moment, you know, you have a depth to you. So you can, you know, fear and excitement are the same emotion, just a different context. So you can be at the bottom looking up at a monstrous wave about to crash over you and be scared, or you can look at it and go, you know, what's the lesson that I'm going to learn from that? And knowing, you know, having been a sailor, I know how frightening it is to be at the bottom of a trough with a, you know, with the 30 foot wave coming down on a sailing boat. You know, it's not fun. But all the training and everything that you did, you know, that you didn't go out there. That wasn't the first time you did it, right? So yeah,
Exactly. And there's
I think,
there's another piece here. I don't want to drop this. What happens in that fullness is the ego gets to live in the middle ground. The pressure gets taken off the ego. Because if we're trying to live life by feeding our ego so we feel good, we're not going to feel good. It doesn't work that way. We feel good when we realize our big connections into the world around us, and how that world supports us and teaches us and gives us what we need. Then we know we're safe at the peak, at the trough, in between. Then the ego can just relax, and we can be who we are with fewer defenses, healthy emotional defenses. And it's a much better world. We're more open-hearted in that state.
I think we're about to get the hook, Marti. I think the producer has just turned up, and I'm looking at the clock, and I'm going, I think this is perfect. Yeah, I know, but it's part 3, isn't it? It's part 3.
So you picked it. That's right, Steve. So we're going over because we started a bit late. So we've got a couple more minutes. All right. So just 2-minute kind of warning, and then we'll wrap up. I'll let you kind of do that summary, and maybe there's a way you can have that segue to the next topic, or sum up, you know, the issues and problems for people.
I'm happy, Marti, please do that. But I'm happy, Av, to get your thoughts as an observer. Right? What was it? What was it that you heard and could not apply, but you know, what was it that you heard that can help you?
I think everyone's probably going to hear something, and it's going to land differently based on where they're at. And for me, what kind of landed in a big way was that we can't solve things with the ego, and it's the ego can't solve it. So like if we're in a situation, like we've got a problem or an issue, and then we try and use our intellect and our brain and our bodies, you know, to solve it. It doesn't matter how intuitive we are. Like sometimes we've created the mapping in our bodies to kind of go, what's my gut feel on this? What do I think about this? How do I respond? What's the most strategic thing? And, you know, how can I be smart about this? And that, again, that's all processing in here. And what I'm hearing from Marti is that when we're more conscious, we actually step outside of that rather than trying to think our way to a solution. And when, and I think, and I just got that really clearly, and reflected on a couple of times recently where I have done the go outside of yourself and feel in. And again, that comes down to your trust and your connection to the world around you, which we talked about last time. And yeah, I think it's a big one, these issues and problems, because people have them every day. People look at things every day. And there's the book, The Gap and the Gain, that you spoke about, Steve. You know, when we focus on what we don't have or what someone else has got, it's the gap. And then we become judgmental about it. And then, oh, my life isn't so good, or that this is a problem. And again, this is all up in here in the ego, and it just spins us in this spinny wheel of trying to think our way out of a problem. And that's I'm done with that. Like that's really, you know.
It's like, yeah, like,
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're done with it, right? We're done with it. And now what, right? Now we're done with that. That's the decision. And now what, right?
Yeah. Well, I want to point out a couple of things that might tide us over to our next conversation. Steve, you said a couple of times, I love this, that when you stepped outside and just like felt nature around you, whatever, that you felt refreshed. Something changed. Yeah. The something is energy and information from the world around you filling up your internal whatevers, right? We get something, we get energized, we get information. We're not just banging around in an old closet with dusty old notes. It's new information, it's new energy. It keeps us alive, it keeps us functioning, it keeps us focused on creating, on evolving. That's what it's really doing at a very, very deep energetic level. And so we're not so much, we might go into a business and say, I want them to think differently. I would really suggest that we want them to experience differently. And we have to remember, I'm always saying this to you guys, that everybody wants to trust. I want to trust first. Well, you won't have trust until after the experience. So Steve, when you said courage, yeah, it takes some courage. It might be a little scary, but as you also said, fear and excitement are really the same energy, just a different context. It might turn out to be really exciting. And so it takes a little courage to have a tiny new experience that will make a lifetime of difference.
I sort of relate it to, it's a personal upgrade. So you go outside, like like you've got some temporary files that are sort of sitting there, cached, and you just and this is just, so all you're doing is you're going outside, you're doing an awareness update, right, or a consciousness update, or whatever it is, and it just purges all the stuff that shouldn't be there and gives you a whole bunch of new stuff, right? And then you go off and do something about it, and then a week later you come back and do it again, or tomorrow, or the next day, or the next hour you do it again, right? That's because we're using an operating system that was designed for 100,000 years ago, not for 10 hours ago.
Oh, no, that's another like 5.
All right, that's the subject for next week.
Okay, so in wrapping up,
the subject for next week.
Yeah, what would you like next chat's topic to be then?
Should we talk about the operating system?
Let's do that,
please.
And for the people who are still with us, you want to just define, Steve, what that is, because you've talked about it, you've mentioned it many times, and just a definition of what that is.
Well, this is my definition, right? So the bush lawyer got no idea what I'm talking about. I'm making this up as I go, right? But this is how I feel, right? This is how I feel about this. I feel that I've got an operating system that was designed around the hunter-gatherer who would go out and build and find food, bring it back to the village or to their group, and then do it all again. And there was no, if I didn't kill anything and bring it back, I didn't then have to sit in with the psychologist and the mentor and tell me. I probably had someone there who was teaching me my craft about hunting, right? But they didn't then try to psychoanalyze me. It was just get out and do it.
Mm.
And so that was fit for purpose then. It's not fit for purpose now. We don't, there isn't a saber-toothed tiger sitting out the front. There's a car and a road and a computer sitting in front of us. And so that operating system that we had is not fit for purpose. So how do I get rid of, how do I not ignore, and this is what I'm going, I don't know. I've hit the limit.
Okay.
I've hit the limit of my consciousness here, right?
Okay, so that's the topic for next week.
And so,
Yeah.
yep. But I'm going to come with a question: is it the operating system or how we're using it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's
So
what
that's
that
fine.
topic
Yeah.
will be.
All right.
For those of you who don't know, we are
That
we're
one
from-
person that's left.
Oh, really? Is there?
I
Maybe
don't
there
know.
is. We'll be here in a fortnight. It'll actually be on, if you're in Australia, it'll be Thursday morning. If you're in the US, it'll be Wednesday afternoon at the same time. And we will go for 30 minutes now that we know the technology. Marti will all be there on time, and we'll start at 8 o'clock.
Embarrassed, right?
That's okay. And if
Great.
anyone wants to join us in Six Star, we meet on a fortnightly basis as well with a bigger group. We call it the Six Star Huddle. You just jump on in. That's the bit.ly link to come and join. You can pop in for free, and we'll invite you to our next huddle if you are interested in coming along and talking. We have a different kind of it's not this kind of conversation. But it's very open and warm and friendly and a lot of fun.
Supportive.
So,
it's supportive.
Very supportive.
And if anybody has questions that they would like to pose, I don't know whether they can do that in the chat in the events. I'm not sure.
Or they can
just,
I think they'll be in the comments, or they can just send a message into the either Six Star or into myself. So
Yep. Cool. All right.
Beautiful.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Great.
Have a
Thanks.
great day.
Take care.
Yeah.